California, a land of towering redwoods, sun-kissed beaches, and bustling cities. But in recent years, a new image has come to define this iconic state: wildfires. Once a seasonal occurrence, wildfires now rage across California with terrifying regularity, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. The Golden State is no stranger to fire. It is a natural part of its ecosystem. However, the scale and intensity of recent wildfires are unprecedented. The past decade has witnessed some of the largest, deadliest, and most destructive wildfires in California's history. Each year, it seems, brings a new season of fear as flames engulf homes, businesses, and vast swaths of wilderness. The air grows thick with smoke, turning the sky an apocalyptic orange, and forcing residents to flee for their lives. The images are shocking and hard to forget, but behind the headlines and the horrifying statistics lie countless stories of loss, resilience, and the urgent need for change. The year 2017 saw over 1 million acres scorched, a record at the time, but this grim milestone was soon eclipsed. In 2018, the Camp Fire, the deadliest wildfire in California's history, tore through the town of Paradise, claiming 85 lives and destroying nearly 19,000 structures. The 2020 wildfire season was even more destructive, burning over 4 million acres, an area larger than the state of Connecticut. These megafires, as they are now known, are a terrifying manifestation of a changing climate and a stark warning of the challenges ahead. To understand California's wildfire crisis, we must first understand the forces that drive it. The state's Mediterranean climate, characterized by hot, dry summers and wet winters, has always made it susceptible to wildfires. Vegetation thrives during the rainy season only to become tinder-dry fuel as temperatures rise and the rain disappears. This natural cycle, however, has been dangerously amplified by climate change. Rising global temperatures are creating hotter, drier conditions across the western United States, and California is feeling the heat. The average temperature in California has increased by approximately 3 degrees Fahrenheit since the late 19th century, and the state has experienced its hottest years on record in the past 2 decades. This prolonged heat dries out vegetation at an alarming rate, creating ideal conditions for wildfires to ignite and spread. Adding fuel to the fire, quite literally, are increasingly common and severe droughts. California has endured several prolonged droughts in recent decades, further exacerbating the dry conditions. These droughts, linked to changes in precipitation patterns caused by climate change, deplete water sources, kill vegetation, and leave behind vast quantities of dry, flammable material. Finally, we have the wind. California is known for its strong winds, particularly the Santa Ana winds that blow in from the east during the fall. These hot, dry winds act like giant bellows, whipping up small flames into raging infernos and carrying embers for miles, sparking new fires far from the original source. The combination of these 3 factors, heat, drought, and wind, has created a perfect storm for wildfires in California. While climate change is undoubtedly a major driver of California's wildfire crisis, it is not the only culprit. Decades of misguided forest management practices have also played a significant role in creating the tinderbox conditions we see today. For centuries, wildfires were a natural part of California's landscape. They cleared out underbrush, created open spaces in the forest, and allowed fire-adapted plant species to thrive. However, with the arrival of European settlers, a policy of aggressive fire suppression was adopted. The goal was to protect lives, property, and valuable timber resources. While well-intentioned, this approach had unintended consequences. By suppressing naturally occurring fires, we allowed forests to become unnaturally dense and overgrown with brush, dead trees, and other flammable material. This created a vast reservoir of fuel, waiting for a spark to ignite a catastrophic blaze. Compounding the problem, logging practices often focused on maximizing timber yields, removed older, more fire-resistant trees while leaving behind younger, more flammable ones. This further altered the forest structure and increased the risk of high-intensity wildfires. This legacy of fire suppression and unsustainable logging practices has left many of California's forests in a precarious state. Decades of accumulated fuel, coupled with hotter, drier conditions, have created a tinderbox ready to explode. While natural factors and forest management practices have created a landscape ripe for wildfires, it is often human actions that provide the spark. In fact, it is estimated that humans are responsible for igniting over 90% of wildfires in California. These ignitions can be accidental or deliberate, but regardless of the intent, the consequences can be devastating. One of the most common causes of accidental wildfires is equipment use. Activities such as mowing lawns, using chainsaws, and operating vehicles can generate sparks or heat that ignite dry vegetation. Power lines, particularly in windy conditions, can also spark fires if they are downed or malfunction. Even something as seemingly innocuous as a discarded cigarette butt can have disastrous consequences. Intentional acts of arson are another significant cause of wildfires. While arsonists account for a relatively small percentage of wildfire ignitions, the fires they start can be particularly destructive. Arson-caused fires are often set in remote areas, making them more difficult to detect and control in their early stages. The human element in wildfire ignition is a stark reminder that we are not merely victims of these disasters. We often play a role in creating them. Section 5, 2023. A year of unprecedented devastation. The year 2023 will forever be etched in the memories of Californians as one of the worst wildfire seasons in living memory. A relentless combination of record-breaking heat, prolonged drought, and strong winds fueled conflagrations that scorched millions of acres, destroyed thousands of homes, and claimed hundreds of lives. The scale of the destruction was unlike anything the state had ever seen. The year began with an ominous warning as the early start of the fire season caught many off guard. By April, wildfires were already raging across the state, fueled by dry brush and driven by strong winds. As the summer wore on, the situation only worsened. A record-breaking heat wave in July sent temperatures soaring to unprecedented levels, baking the already parched landscape and creating ideal conditions for wildfires to ignite. One by one, megafires erupted across the state, each one seemingly more destructive than the last. The August complex fire, which started as a series of lightning-sparked blazes, ultimately consumed over 1 million acres, making it the largest wildfire in California's history. The Creek Fire, ignited by a gender reveal party gone wrong, burned for months, scorching hundreds of thousands of acres and destroying hundreds of homes. As the smoke from these infernos filled the air, turning the sky an eerie orange, Californians were once again confronted with the devastating reality of life in a fire-prone state. Section 6. Lives Upended. Stories from the Fire Lines. Behind the staggering statistics of California's wildfire crisis lie countless personal stories of loss, resilience, and the indomitable human spirit. For those who live in fire-prone areas, the threat of wildfire is not an abstract concept, it is a constant and terrifying reality. They live with the knowledge that their homes, their livelihoods, and even their lives could be at risk at any moment. Take for example the story of Sarah, a single mother living in the town of Paradise. When the campfire roared through her community in 2018, she barely had time to grab her 2 young children and flee as flames engulfed her home. She lost everything in the fire, her house, her belongings, her memories. Yet, amidst the ashes, she found the strength to rebuild her life, drawing on the support of her community and the unwavering love for her children. Then there is John, a 4th-generation rancher in Sonoma County. He has spent his entire life working the land, but in recent years he has watched as wildfires have repeatedly threatened his livelihood. In 2020, the glass fire tore through his property, destroying his barn, killing several of his cattle, and scorching his vineyards. Despite the devastating losses, John remains determined to stay on his land, to rebuild, and to adapt to the growing threat of wildfires. These stories, though heartbreaking, also highlight the resilience of the human spirit. Even in the face of unimaginable loss, Californians are finding ways to cope, to rebuild, and to support one another. Section 7. Beyond the Flames, a Toxic Legacy. The devastation caused by California's wildfires extends far beyond the immediate impact of the flames. The aftermath of these infernos leaves behind a toxic legacy that continues to affect the health of communities, ecosystems, and the environment for years to come. One of the most immediate and visible consequences is the impact on air quality. Wildfires release massive amounts of smoke and particulate matter into the atmosphere, creating hazardous breathing conditions for millions of people. The smoke from California's wildfires can travel thousands of miles, affecting air quality across the United States, and even reaching as far as Europe. Exposure to wildfire smoke can cause a range of health problems, from eye and respiratory irritation to more serious cardiovascular and respiratory illnesses. Children, the elderly, and those with pre-existing respiratory conditions are particularly vulnerable to the harmful effects of wildfire smoke. Beyond the immediate health impacts, wildfire smoke also contributes to climate change. The burning of forests releases large amounts of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, further exacerbating global warming. This creates a vicious cycle, as climate change contributes to more frequent and intense wildfires, which in turn release more greenhouse gases, fueling further warming. Section 8. A Call to Action, Protecting Our Future. The escalating wildfire crisis in California is a complex and multifaceted problem. but it is not insurmountable. Addressing this challenge requires a comprehensive and collaborative approach that involves policymakers, scientists, land managers, and communities working together to mitigate risks and build resilience. One of the most crucial steps is to address the root cause of climate change. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions through a transition to clean energy, improved energy efficiency, and sustainable land management practices is essential to curbing the warming trend and reducing the frequency and intensity of wildfires. In addition to addressing climate change, there is an urgent need to rethink forest management practices. Decades of fire suppression have created unnaturally dense forests that are highly susceptible to catastrophic wildfires. We need to restore a more natural fire regime through prescribed burns, mechanical thinning, and other forest management techniques that reduce fuel loads and create healthier, more resilient forests. Section 9. Restoring Balance, a Vision for a Fire-Resilient California. California's wildfire crisis is a stark reminder of the powerful forces of nature and the urgent need for human action. While we cannot entirely prevent wildfires, we can take steps to mitigate their impact and create a more fire-resilient future for California. This requires a fundamental shift in our thinking, from a reactive approach focused on fire suppression to a proactive approach that embraces fire as a natural part of the ecosystem. It involves investing in research and innovation to better understand wildfire behavior, develop new fire-resistant building materials, and improve early warning systems. It also requires educating the public about wildfire risks, promoting responsible land management practices, and fostering a culture of preparedness. Building a fire-resilient California is not just about protecting homes and property. It's about safeguarding the state's unique biodiversity, preserving its natural resources, and ensuring the health and well-being of its citizens for generations to come. The task ahead is daunting, but the stakes are too high to ignore. By working together, we can restore balance to California's fire-prone landscapes and create a future where wildfires, while inevitable, are no longer catastrophic.